It's a very dramatic, strange parsha, I must say. And there's so many aspects to the parsha to talk about. So we'll try and connect with one, but like put a few different ideas together and try and connect them as one. All right, so what we have in this parsha is Yitschak. The Torah says he's v'tikaheh einav. His eyesight became lessened, that he became blind, Rashi explains. And Rashi gives several reasons for that. He says that one was because of the incense from the wise of Yishmael blinded him. One is he says because at the Akedah, the angels cried, and the tears of the angels fell into his eyes. And the third reason he says is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu made him blind in order that he ends up giving the blessings. You know, the whole story, the whole drama that we have here, where Yaakov came and had to steal the brachas in a deceitful way, in a kind of tricky way, which we want to discuss as well. Is why did it have to be in a tricky way? And in order to do that, it had to be that Yaakov, if Yitzhak could have seen, if he could see, then he would not be able to do that. So the question here is, all right. So there are a lot of questions here. First of all, why did Yaakov need to get the brachas in a deceitful way? Why let's say from Mina Shamayim did it have to be like that? Secondly, are there no better ways? If Hashem wants the brachas to go to Jacob, does it have to be so dramatic that Yitzchak becomes blind? Like, Hashem has many ways to do something. Did it have to be in a way that Yitzchak became blind? We're going to try and answer all these questions, okay? Before we get there, let's just go off on a little bit of a tangent and discuss how Yaakov and Esav developed in the parsha, how they grew up, and how they went their different ways. We find that Esav, he ended up selling his firstborn rights. And also, I want to also preface another question to everything we're saying here before we go off on this tangent. And that is, and that's the main question over here is, how could it possibly be that Yitzchak even had a havamina to give these precious, very important blessings to Yitzchak? I'm sorry, to Esav. How could it be that he had such? He was these brachas were everything. These brachas had all the powers for success in them. And these were the famous blessings that God had blessed Abram with, and then Abram entrusted them with Yitzchak. These were powerful, powerful blessings. How could it possibly be that he even considered giving these blessings to Esav, who was a rasha, who was an evil guy? So let's go off on this tangent for a moment and just discuss, because the Torah discusses the evilness of Esav, but there's like one particular highlight that the Torah, when it discusses the evilness of Esav, which, well, first of all, I think it's a very big lesson to us. And if the Torah is telling us this, it means he's also, it's a lesson that the Torah wants to tell us for all the generations. So the Torah explains that on the day that Esav came home hunting from the field, and Yaakov was making a soup. And the reason he was making a soup was because Abraham had died. And it was the custom to make a lentil soup as the Sudas Havra, like there's a minhag when a person dies, to there is such a minhag to make a Suda. So he was making the Suda Havra. And it seems on this very day that Abraham died, Esav really took a drastic turn in his behavior. It says, Chazal say on that day he committed 5 very grave sins, including murder, including having relations with a married woman. He did. The Midrash says that he did a lot of sins on that day. And it seems that he felt that if such a great man died, like Abraham, that, what's the point? What's the point if like he came to the decision that, let's be happy, let's drink and be merry, and let's party because tomorrow we're going to die. There was the interesting thing is, for a tzaddik, the day of death is an inspiration to try and utilize this world as best as possible, and to use this world to achieve mitzvot. But to someone who's not on that schedule, then a person says, no, I might as well, you only live forever. I might as well enjoy this world as much as possible. And if the same end is going to come to a tzaddik, is going to come to a rasha, we're all going to be in a pit, I might as well live it up. So that's the conclusion that Esav came to. But the Torah doesn't highlight that. That's learned from Midrashim. The Torah says something like that we would probably consider very insignificant. And that is that after he sold, Yaakov understood who Esav was. And he understood that it wasn't fitting for him to have this privilege of being the firstborn, which entitled him to the service in the Beis Hamikdash and all sorts of gifts, spiritual gifts, as well as physical gifts. Something happened here. Someone put on there's something buzzing.
No, everything's okay.
And so the Torah says, so he understood he had to try and buy the firstborn from Esav because it would be definitely misused. And the proof is that Esav readily sold it to Yaakov for a bowl of soup. That was the proof in the pudding. That was definitely a proof that he did not deserve it, and he didn't think very much of it. But the Chazal say he came back from a hunt that day. He was very hungry. He was almost close. Let's say he was starving, and he wasn't successful with his hunt. And what he did was he was very, very tired. And it says tired, the Chazal say, means tired from murder. It says that a person that murders becomes tired. That's how Chazal define a murderer. So when it says he came back tired, he had murdered someone. He had actually murdered Nimrod and stole his clothes. There were special clothes that had actually been, these were the garments, these garments that he stole from Nimrod, the big day Chamudot, these garments were actually, Chazal say, were actually the katonot, or they were the physical skin garments that, excuse me, that the first man had worn. And so when so he coveted these garments, and he killed Nimrod in order to get them. And he came back very, very tired, but he was like deathly tired. And you could claim perhaps that Yaakov had taken advantage of him. You know, he was like, it was almost puach nefesh. He was about to die, and so it was like a sale under a false pretense. But the Torah says that he ate, he drank, and then it says, and this is the big sin. It says v'yivez Esav as a bechorah. It says that Esav despised the blessing of the firstborn. He despised it. So, you know, you could say, okay, he didn't. You know, when he was very hungry. You know, it's like, you know, the story of the guy. There's a famous joke about a guy who was very stingy, and his trick was he was very rich, and he used to invite people, and wanted the name of being a big hachnasus, someone who would do a lot of hachnasus orchim, and he would invite people. He would invite the poor people, but he was very stingy. He didn't want to really give away his food, so he used to talk with them, and they had to answer the questions, so they couldn't eat. There was one guy, he had a trick. He came in and he said he was from the rich man's old town, and the rich man started asking him about the different people from his town. And every person, he said, how was Yaakov the milkman? He says, he's dead. Oh no, I can't believe it. In the meantime, the guy was eating. And he went and asked about, you know, what about the tailor? Is he still around? No, he also died. And everybody asked about, he said he died. He said, at a certain point, the rich man, in the meantime, this poor guy was eating. In the meantime, the rich man said, it can't be that everybody died. He said, no, it's true. When I eat, everybody, you know, the world is dead. When I'm eating, the world is dead. So, you know, there are people that when they're eating, you know, nothing else counts. So you could say when Esav was hungry, the world was dead. You know, he didn't care about anything. But the point is, after he ate and he drank, then the Torah says, v'yivez, he despised it. It's not that Esav was just hungry. He didn't see any value in serving Hashem. He didn't see any value in being in the firstborn. By the way, it says at that moment, God had made, I saw somewhere that God had made Yitschak temporarily poor. So that Esav, the only thing that really the firstborn was really offering was not any physical wealth. It was only some kind of spiritual value. And that meant nothing that meant absolutely nothing to Esav. And therefore Esav despised, the Torah says he despised this firstborn. So Esav not only did not feel, even after he ate and drank, and he could have claimed afterwards, no, you took advantage of you took it. No, but he didn't claim that at all. Adarabah, he was laughing. He was actually laughing at Yaakov, and he was saying, I gave him this meaningless firstborn blessing. I have no benefit from it, and I got a free lunch too. And this was just a confirmation that he didn't deserve it. It was a confirmation he didn't deserve it. Now we kind of laugh at Yaakov, at Esav. You know, how could he be? And the point is that the Chazal are saying that this v'yivez, it wasn't just that he didn't feel it was important. He disgraced it. He felt it was like absolutely meaningless and absolutely of no value whatsoever. And he was belittling it. And he was saying, that fool Yaakov, I gave him nothing and I got a free lunch too. and he was laughing at him, and he thought it was nothing. And Chazal say that attitude was worse than all the other averas all the other sins that he did on that day. That attitude was the worst. That's the worst sin. That's a type of I hear talking in the background. I hear talking in the background. So please mute your. Yeah. That kind of, yeah, it's disturbing. I hear something, noises in the background. Okay, so that kind of attitude is a type of blasphemy. It's a type of like ruchnius has no value whatsoever. And it's that kind of attitude that's the one the Torah mentions. The Torah doesn't mention the other averas that he did, even though they were cardinal sins. They were terrible sins. And maybe originally those were the reasons why Yaakov, but Yaakov also understood the Esav didn't value, the ruchnius at all. So there's a very interesting balatorim. There's a very, very interesting balatorim over here. And it says over here, V'yivaz Esav et b'chorah, and Esav despised the firstborn, the blessings of the firstborn, or being a firstborn, and the responsibilities that it entailed. And it says in the Megillah's Esther, by Haman, who was a descendant of Esav, it says that he was it also says the same word, v'yivez, he despised to just punish Mordechai alone. He wanted to punish all of the Jewish people, and he wanted to commit genocide. So he connects these two words, the Balatorim. He says there's two places in the Torah. It says v'yivez here, and v'yivez Haman to destroy, to murder Mordechai alone. He wanted to murder all the Jewish people. It was too small. It wasn't. It would be a disgrace, a waste, just to, kill Mordechai. You have to kill the whole Jewish people. Let's take them all out. So what's happening here is it's a boozy ben boozy. A boozy is disgrace. Amalek or Haman is this disgrace called Haman, is the son of this disgrace called Esav. The V'yivez of Esav gave birth, many generations, was magnified, and gave birth to a genocidal murderer called Haman, an Amaleki, right? But it begins with not having any value whatsoever for spiritual. Just think the whole world is nothing more than just a physical place, and there's nothing more. It began with an Esav who is v'yivaz at the Bechorah. It begins there. And the end is you give birth, you have a grandson or a great-grandson who becomes a genocidal miter, a guy who's planning genocide, a genocidal psychopath murderer. So that's where it begins. And so we do kind of say, this Esav, he's extreme, but we have to kind of think that if the Torah is telling us this, it applies to us. Meaning, we have to also realize that very, very often we make choices in our life on a daily basis. And really, I know that I'm speaking to people that are coming to a shiur, and you're the good people. You're the people that take time off to listen to a shiur, to come to a shiur. So the message is not really so much for you. It's for the people that are not listening in my shiur today, that are not online here with us. But I got to say it somewhere. So, but I'm even talking to myself. Okay, I'm talking to myself because I could learn more. I could find more time to learn. Spend a lot of time watching news. There's a lot of news to watch these days, I have to admit. I publicly confess But I'm just saying, we make choices in life, and through our choices, in a certain way, we're giving up an hour of learning, an hour of eternity for a free lunch. And we think we're getting a good deal also. We think the Yetzer Hara fools us to think that when we make these choices and we say, yeah, I'll skip my shiur, I don't have time, I go to an IX game. We think we're like, yeah, that Torah lesson, that I don't have time for that. That's not so important. But this is an IX game, So we're giving up. We're not giving the proper value. And what we're showing is there's a level. I'm not saying it's on the level of Esav, but there's a level of V'ives. We have to think what is that going in the future going to give birth to? What kind of Ben Buzi is going to come out of that? Because we don't value. So it's not so much the hours that we spend necessarily going to shul or going to this. It's more the attitude. It's the attitude of it's the chashivas that we need to have. We need to have the right attitude towards the value of learning Torah and praying and davening and our ruchnias in doing mitzvot. It's not so much the time as opposed to the attitude. We shouldn't think that when we have to do other things, and we do have to do other things, we shouldn't think that we're getting a free lunch. We're we got the better end of the deal. We should be sad that we can't. Let's say if we can't learn more hours, we should at least be sad. We should at least know that we're losing. We should at least know that we're losing, and we should pray for Hashem that He should, like David HaMelech said, "Shifti v'beis Hashem, kol yimei chayai, laksas benom ulevakar b'heichalo." That we should at least ask for that. That's at least what we want. That we understand that there's a value, and even if we can't, that we know that we're missing something. Then, when we do have the opportunity, we haven't sold our bechora. We haven't sold our beautiful privilege. Our beautiful privilege of being Yidden, we haven't sold out on that. Okay, as long as we have the right attitude, it's not even so much the hours. It's we still have a connection, and when we do spend those hours, at least we can appreciate it. We can connect with it in a different way. And we connect with Hashem whenever we are there. We can always connect with Hashem, and not only that, then we also are transforming the physical world. All those physical things that we do, like going to an IX game. All those things, we actually transform them into mitzvot because we need those things. We need those things. But if we have the attitude that the ruchnius in our life is not important, then we make a disconnect. And then our Torah is not important. We give more importance to other things. There's a verse in Parshas Kisavo, and it says that God sends us into exile. That God sends us into exile not because it doesn't say because we sinned. It says because we did not serve God b'simcha, with happiness, ubetuv levav, with happiness and a good heart. Mirov kol, more than anything else. Actually, the normal way it's translated is mirov kol, was God gave us an abundance of good, mirov kol, from all the good, and we got spoiled, or we had all this abundance and we didn't appreciate it. And instead of these great blessings in wealth and abundance and success that we were given, it became a reason not to be rebellious. So that's the simple meaning, that we did not serve Hashem with joy, mirov kol. After Hashem gave us everything, we're not joyous to serve Hashem, and other, but we rebelled. But the Arizal says that's not what it means. He reads it a different way. He says that you did not serve Hashem mirov kol. Mirov kol means more than anything else. What the Rizal is saying is it means that we did serve Hashem with joy. It's just our joy in serving Hashem was not more than the joy of eating a delicious steak. Our joy was we enjoyed learning a Daf Gemara, we enjoyed learning a Mishnah, we enjoyed coming to a Shir Torah, we enjoyed it, but we also enjoyed our steak. We also enjoyed which is okay. There's nothing wrong with enjoying a good steak. There's nothing wrong with enjoying life. There's nothing wrong, nothing. But our enjoyment in Ruchnius has to be more. That's what he says. The reason why I'm sending you into exile is because you had equal simcha for the other things in life, in this world, just as much as the spiritual things. But your joy in spiritual things should be more. You should get a more geschmack, a more enjoyment from learning some Gemara, from going to a good shir. You should have more enjoyment. I hope I'm doing it now. I hope I'm giving you all enjoyment. But you should get more enjoyment from your ruchnius than you have from your physical. Enjoy. Go and enjoy. Go and enjoy your everything you do in life. Enjoy it the same you're enjoying it now. Go get a good geschmack out of a good movie and out of don't say Rabbi Sigal told you to go to the movies, but depends which movie. But get a geschmack out of life. But get more geschmack.
Next program.
Huh?
I said the next program. You organize a movie. No.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, The Matrix, okay? The Matrix. Okay. And get a good geschmack out of everything you do, but get more geschmack out of going to shul. Get more geschmack. That includes the kiddush, of course. Get more geschmack out of learning a daf Gemara. Get more geschmack out of doing mitzvot, of doing kindness. Get more geschmack out of the ruchnius. Okay. Anyway, let's go back now and see. So if we have someone who disgraced, how could it have been that Yitschak was so mistaken? Now, first of all, we have an interesting thing going on over here. We have a thing where Yitschak wants to give the blessing. Yitzchak wants to give the blessings to Esav, and Rivka wants the blessings to go to Yaakov. And it says that Yitzchak loved Esav kitzayid befiv, and Rivka oheves es Yaakov. So it's an interesting thing because usually, which is mashma that like Rivka did not love Esav. It doesn't say anywhere that she loved Esav. So usually you have, there are different explanations to this. So the Chassam Sofer wants to say that the reason why Yitzchak loved Esav was he thought each one saw something that he never had grown up with and thought was a great novelty. Rivka grew up in a house of evildoers. So there was nothing special about Esav, okay? Being a man of the field. And let's assume that it had been like, we have to say that Yitzchak did not realize the total sellout that Esav was. Esav was pretending. That's what it says. Sayid befiv. He was a hunter, but he was not just hunting and bringing food to Yitzchak, which was in a certain way a kind of a bribe. Like it was like they say an ava hatlui b'davar, right? It was a love which was dependent on a thing, and whenever love is dependent on wealth or something else, when the thing goes away, so does the love. And that's what we see here, because it says he loved him because he used to bring him his hunt every day. And he used to bring to Yitzhak the hunt. I hear some noises around here. And And as soon as Yaakov brought the hunt, he blessed Yaakov because it was an ava atlui bedavar. It was an ava that depended on something. And when an ava depends on something, when the thing is gone, so does the ava go. But also, he was deceptive also. He pretended to be a tzaddik. And also, he used to bring him the food. Now, Esav obviously didn't check correctly. But what he used to do was he would bring him the food, he would bring him the hunt, and he would ask Yaakov to do the shechita for him and prepare the food. So when the food was being brought in to Yitschak, Yitschak said, wow. Yitzhak was on a very high spiritual level. And Yitzhak could feel this food was prepared by someone who has a lot of fear of God. He has a lot of fear of God. And he could feel the sparks of holiness in the food, prepared by someone who he could feel the Yiras Shamayim in the food, prepared by a tzaddik. The shechita was done by a tzaddik. A great tzaddik can know. A great tzaddik can feel those sparks of holiness in the food and remove them. Yitzhak, we have to understand, was on a tremendous spiritual level. So this was just confirmation that Esav was a man of this world, but he was also on a very high spiritual level. He didn't know this deal that Esav and Yaakov had, that Esav would make the hunt and Yaakov would check the animal and prepare the food. Yaakov was trying to make sure that Yitzchak's kitchen was kosher. And so Yitzchak understood this was a big novelty to Yitzchak, that Esav could be a man of the world, he could be a businessman and a Yiras Elokim. This was a very, very big novelty to him. That's something he had never seen. He had grown up in the house of Avram. He himself grew up like a tzaddik, he was in a different world, Yitzchak. And so this is something, he loved this novelty. Rivka, on the other hand, understood. She grew up in a house of evil people. Let me put the battery saver on here because I'm about to run out of batteries. If I run out of batteries, we're in trouble. Hold on, I lost the Zoom. Hold on, I'm coming back. Zoom. Okay, here I am. Okay, so Rivka grew up in a house. What was a novelty to her was to see a man like Yaakov, who was sitting and learning all day. That's something that she didn't see. And she understood Esav very well, and she also saw through the bluff. She could see through the bluff. She had grown up in a house of Lavan, Betuel, deceivers. She saw through the deception. When it says that Yitzchak loved Esav because Sayed Befiv, it has a double meaning, of course. It means that he brought him the hunt. That's why he loved him. He brought him his food. But also it means because of the deception. He was hunting Yitzchak with his mouth. He had a deceptive mouth. Sayed Befiv. He had a capturing mouth. Now, there's a very controversial Samson Raphael Hirsch on the parsha, very, 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 very controversial, that he put the blame of Esav turning out the way he turned out on the education that Rivka and Yitzchak gave him. Because Esav did have a nature of being a worldly person, of being a man of the field, as the Torah describes him. They should not have given him an education, the same education as Yaakov, which was sitting in a cheder all day and just learning Torah and not doing outdoor activities. Okay? And what that did, he says, is a very fascinating thing what Rav Samson Raphael Hirsch says. What that did was create the nature in Esav to be a hunter. And what does that mean? He says, if a person is forced if a person is forced into a situation where he cannot truly express in an outside way what he really is inside, first of all, he feels hunted. And therefore, he's not expressing himself who he really is. He can't express his secret. That makes him into a hunter. Why? Because what's a hunter? A hunter is someone who has a secret, right? And traps the animal by not sharing. Like, he sets a trap, and that's the secret. And then the animal falls into the trap. Okay, he sets the trap, and the animal falls into the trap. That's the secret. Well, that's what Esav was. Esav had a secret that he couldn't express. That forced be himself. That forced him to be a fake self. It's a very, very fascinating thing. He says the word secret, sod, is the same word for hunting, sod. They almost sound alike. That's very typical of Simson Raphael Hirsch. Anyway, this is a very controversial Simson Raphael Hirsch because he's putting the blame on Rivka and Yitschak. So many people didn't like this Simson Raphael Hirsch, but I think it's very fascinating, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. No human being is perfect, Adrabah, because they were so great, they wanted the best for their child, but they didn't perceive that such an outcome. Anyway, there was no way for Yitzchak to imagine. So Yitzchak was very impressed with Esav according to his perception of him, and on top of it, the blessings that he gave, these blessings that the blessings that Yaakov bought from Esav of being the firstborn were also blessings of this world. And the Sfas Emes says there were two sets of blessings. There was blessings, spiritual blessings for spiritual success, and there were blessings for physical, this world success. So actually, Esav and Yaakov, as designed to be, were actually supposed to be partners. They were actually supposed to be partners. And Esav was supposed to deal with this world, and Yaakov was supposed to be the other world. And it's very hard to do both. It's very hard to combine both. That was actually the novelty that Yitzchak saw. He saw the way he perceived Esav. The way he perceived Esav, Esav was doing this incredible, impossible job of combining this world and like this world together with Ruchnius, which is almost an impossibility. And he was very amazed by this. Rivka, who saw that Esav was a fraud, knew better and knew that he doesn't even deserve the blessings of this world, because he's totally running with it and disconnecting it from any spiritual value whatsoever, which was not the goal. The goal was to work together with Yaakov and use the blessings of the physical world to join them to a higher spiritual purpose. But Esav was a fraud. He was taking the blessings and running with them just to enhance this world. But even though he was born to deserve them, and you work in a partnership with Yaakov, and together they would have a kind of Yisachar Zvulun relationship where one would work and be in the business world and one would sit in the tent and study Torah, and they would share the benefits of both. That was the goal. That was what it was supposed to be. And that's why Esav was really supposed to marry Leah. And 6 tribes were supposed to come out of Esav. But Esav did not do his job. Esav was a sellout. And therefore he lost the ability to marry Leah, and and everything went through Yaakov. When a person doesn't do his mission in life, his mission is taken away from him and given to someone else to do. And that's what happened. So Yaakov, Yitzchak was correct.
Can I ask something?
Yeah, sure.
I'm sorry to disturb you, Rav Sigal. I want to ask you a question.
Sure.
My name is Jacob de Leeuw.
Yeah, I see, Mr. Le. How are you? I'm davening for your wife, by the way. How is she?
Thank you. I want to ask you one thing. I have heard from my father, but I don't know for sure, that Esav came from a higher world, from the Olam Bria. So and he was even given kavod to his father, because the story of the river, when he was lying down in the river and giving his father the opportunity to cross the river above his body. So can you explain why, although he came from the higher spiritual level, Esav, that he fall? What did you hear this story?
No, I never heard that he was from the Olam Abriya, like you're saying, but I can tell you one thing, that it makes a lot of sense that Esav was very big into Kibbud Avayim, of all the mitzvot, because Esav appreciated the value of this world. And a parent brings a person into this world. And so it's like Esav L'Shitaso. The mafia also, they're very into being Kibbud Avayim. They don't mind shooting people and killing people, but whatever a father says, and we've seen that also. We see that he passed that on to his son Elipaz, who he sent to kill Yaakov, and he says, "What am I going to do? My father told me I have to kill you. What am I supposed to do? I have to honor my father." Like the mafia. So it's very very much in line with what and for sure Esav for sure was on a very high spiritual level. It's not for nothing that Esav's head was buried in the Marat HaMachpelah. Okay, it's not for nothing that his head was buried in the Marat HaMachpelah, because he had the head of an Avos. That's what's so sad. But there was a disconnect between his head and his body. His head and his heart did not connect together. He had no way of connecting anymore this world with the spiritual, and he fell out. He had this tremendous potential, and if he had realized it, it would have been a completely different world. Okay. And that was what it was originally supposed to be. We'll see. I'll go right into it right now, because this is how I want to actually end. There are a lot of deeper things that are happening here than we can imagine. Let's go back to how I started, that Yitzchak became blind, and why did Hashem have to blind Yitzchak? So the point is that we find by I heard this from a shir. I don't even know the name of the rabbi. I didn't have time to even look. But I thought it was. I've heard these ideas before, but he put it together very nicely. But I'll just quickly, because we're running out of time here. So in a very short way, but it says by the first men and the first women that when they ate from the tree of knowledge, it says that their eyes opened up and they saw they were naked. So the question is, like, were they blind before? Did they not see? And what does it mean that their eyes opened up? So to explain things in short, hello?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm back. Don't know what happened. All right, we're gonna have to. If I get cut off, it means that my battery died. Okay, but we'll just that's I won't be able to say goodbye. So the point is like this: there's something called a spiritual eye. The neshama, when a person is living in a spiritual world, his physical eyes become shut. It's not that Chava didn't see they were naked. It's just they were much more spiritual before they ate from the Eitz of Das. What the Eitz of Das did was it closed their spiritual eye and opened up their physical eye, and then they saw. Okay? Yitzchak, And the problem is you can't have both. The problem is that if you want to be in a spiritual world and see spiritual things, you have to close your physical eye. If you want to have a physical eye, and a physical eye is much more limited than a spiritual eye. It only sees what it sees. A spiritual eye can see everything. But if you want to have a spiritual eye, you have to close your physical eye. And when the Torah says that Yitzchak became blind, it doesn't mean he became what it means is that Yitzchak, because he was at the Akedah and he gave himself over to Hashem, he reached such a high level that he actually fixed some of the sin of Adam HaRishon. And because that's what the Avos were doing, they were trying to rectify the sin of Adam HaRishon. And he opened up his spiritual eye. That means he closed that's what it means he became blind in his old age. That's what it means. He became so connected with his spiritual self, he couldn't see the physical world anymore. That's what happened. And what happened is that it was like this story over here was a repeat of what happened in Gan Eden. Esav, in Gan Eden, there was a snake. Now, the snake was cursed. What would have been the role of the snake if the snake had not been cursed? So our sages say the snake every person would have had 2 snakes to do everything for them. Go to the store, fix the car, do the garden, take out the garbage. The snake, when we lost the snake, we lost these tremendous gophers. We lost these tremendous servants that would have served us tremendously and would have allowed us to totally be in a spiritual world, because you can't do both. It's very hard to combine both worlds. The problem is when you open up your spiritualness, the physicalness closes. It's very hard to be in both worlds. And that was the goal. The goal was mankind was supposed to be very spiritual. And we would have these servants that would slither and slide, and they would they would have legs. They would be our butlers, right? That's what the snakes were actually created to be. Had they not been cursed. And so that role of being that good snake, that was the role of Esav towards Yaakov as well. And Esav, unfortunately, just like the snake was cursed, Esav chose to close his eyes to disgrace the firstborn, to close his eyes to spirituality, and only see the physical world. And he became a snake. He took on the role of a snake. The snake, the way it is today, where there's hatred, there's a mismatch between the role of man. And that's why there's hatred between yours, like God said, there'll be hatred between Chava and the snake. There'll be hatred between your seed and his descendants, because there's a total mismatch. That's what happened. Okay? So now what's happening here is Esav is basically trying to deceive Yitzchak, okay, like the snake tried to deceive Chava in the Garden of Eden and try and get the blessings when he doesn't deserve the blessings, okay? That's what he's trying to do here. So it's like a repeat over here of what happened in Gan Eden. But this is where it comes out. What comes out now is that Rivka, she is now rectifying the sin of Chava. Rivka is a Gilgul of Chava. I don't know if I'm going to have time to prove that, but there's a way of proving that. The idea was that man, originally, when he was created, he had 2 garments. That's why also there's this whole thing with garments going on over here with the garments, and he's wearing the garments of Esav, and there's the physical garments and there's spiritual garments. Man was given a cloak of light and a cloak of skin, and they're both true. The cloak of light is his inside. The cloak of skin is his outside. And they became naked means that the cloak of light disappeared, and they only saw the outside. They only saw the outside skin. They only saw the outside. So the question is like this: when hold on one second, I have to remember this. The gematria of Sif. It says that when Rivka saw Yitzchak for the first time, she took the Sif and covered herself. Why would you cover yourself if you're trying? I mean, you're going on a shidduch and you're seeing your husband for the first time, and wasn't she dressed before? And what is the Sif? What is the scarf? What is the scarf? There was no scarf mentioned in the parsha. So the scarf is this cloak of light. She was showing Yitzchak that I'm the fitting shidduch to you, because that's what Yitzchak was interested. Yitzchak was not interested in seeing a physical woman. He was interested in seeing, does she wear this cloak of light? Just like Yitzchak was in a different dimension, and his physical world was shut, and he was in a high spiritual dimension of Adam Arishon before the sin, where his spiritual eye was open. Rivka was covering herself with the cloak of light and showing Yitzchak, I'm also on this dimension. Okay, so that and that's what Chava also had, this light, this skin of light. So Rivka now was continuing the role of Chava, and she needed to rectify the mistake that she had made through deceiving Yaakov. She needs to rectify this now, and so she needs to fool the snake, and in this case, fool her husband the opposite way. Before in the garden, she fooled him to sin. Now she has to fool him to give the brachas to the right person. This was a whole story to rectify, and also afford the opportunity for Chava, who is now Rivka, Rivka is now playing the role of Chava, to rectify the sin that she had done in the Garden of Eden. That's why it had to work through deception. Also, another reason why the brachas had to work through deception is just because these brachas were the brachas of this physical world, and that's also why Yitzchak wasn't a master over them, because Yitzchak wasn't in this world anymore. So he had a very hard time discerning how to deal with the brachas of this world. The brachas of the spiritual world were anyway going to go to Yaakov, says the Sfas Emes. But the brachas of this world, that was really not Yitzchak's parcha, because Yitzchak's eyes were closed. He was on that level of Adam Rishon before the sin. But the snake was now coming. The snake was now Esav, because Esav, that was his role, to be the snake, to be the kosher snake. But he was now being the bad snake, because he had totally sold out his spiritual world and was totally living in the physical world. He was now trying to fool Yitzchak again. And so now Rivka, she rectified the matter. So it's quite a drama, to put it mildly. Any questions?
Beautiful explanation. Wondrous. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Very nice. Thank you so much.
Okay. Anyway, everybody, that we should be able to combine both worlds, appreciate what we have, and always have these opportunities to have these sharing. We have to appreciate that. We have to thank Mr. Jacobs for his efforts in organizing them, and we should appreciate the opportunities and be grateful for them. Okay.
Yes, we are grateful you're speaking. Take your time. I'm sorry
healthy,
that you
happy.
didn't know we are not allowed to go in the Yesesay, but okay.
Okay, I it's one more sin on my list.
Mm-hmm. Okay, shall we make another appointment? If you want, one moment. Well, it could be the end of the year. No, I have no free 23 December. Otherwise, in January, you can choose.
I think we'll do it in January. Okay.
January. Okay,
Yeah.
1 moment. The two. The first week of January, the 6th.
Okay, fine.
Okay.
You'll write me and
yes,
remind me.
I
Okay?
remind you. I always remind you.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much. And now we are waiting on Guri Dunner. He has to come.
Okay. Take care. Take care. Bye bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay. Take care. Bye bye.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Wacht even op Guri.